Welcome back, Alpha Hunters. We are doing another Your Stock, My Plan today. And for today's stock, we have CRSR, Corsair Gaming Incorporated. And we have Diet Cola to thank for recommending the CRSR stock that we are analyzing today. So thank you, buddy. And if you want to take a brief look at their website just to get an understanding of like what kind of company this is. They make hardware components, some gaming gear, some streaming gear stuff, PC components, and that kind of stuff. So you just kind of get a brief understanding that they are mostly into the computer hardware area. They do have some software, but they are really big into the esports area and just computer hardware, accessories, peripherals, that kind of thing. That's what kind of company this is. That's what they do. That's what they make. So now you know kind of what they do, what they make, kind of get an understanding of who they target focus as their customer and that kind of thing. Okay, but this is their stock chart, and they IPO'd late 2020. Okay, actually September the 23rd of 2020. And we can see that they had a strong rise for about 2 months, right? They just kind of went higher until the end of November of 2020, and then that's been their all-time high. So since this is an IPO, I kind of have two ways that I play IPOs. If they have strong runs out the gate like Corsair Gaming has, what I will typically look for is the sell down later in the breaking of this low IPO low, which is currently around 15 points or so, 14 points, something like that. So that is what I'm going to look for here. Now, the other way that I would look to play IPOs is kind of how Facebook IPO'd way back, like almost 10 years ago, where it kind of just traded down for a while and then eventually turned and went higher. Something like, let me get my paintbrush out. Something like it IPO'd and just went lower, and then did that. Something like that. But Corsair Gaming did something different. It went screaming higher, and now it's kind of just rolling over. The way I'll play this one, or look to kind of play this one, is for it to come down to the low of breaking of that IPO low. So I'll zoom in here on a little bit of the short term. So the very key point is going to be this low right there. It's about 1410 or so point level. And if you want to be a little bit more exact, 1409. Okay, so 1409 is the all-time low, which is the low of the IPO day. That's kind of what I'm looking for. And so what I would typically like to see, or typically how I would care to play this, is kind of just set an alert, let it come make this new IPO low, or new low, not even an IPO low, it'd be well after the IPO, but let it make a new low, and let it hang out there for a little bit, and then once it breaks that IPO low, I'd have an alert set on that would call me back to it, and then I would set another alert again. Okay, so we'll look to do that, and I'll kind of show you how I would set that up. But one of the things that you could do, maybe it wouldn't even be a bad way to kind of play this, is just kind of, there you go. You have a clear downtrend for a while right there, and let me set up another one. Maybe like somewhere right in here. So we have a kind of a clear channel down that it's been in. It just kind of popped above it here late mid last week, and really I did check the news on this. This is from Corsair Gaming or CRSR being included into the S&P 600 small cap index. Nothing too game changing on it. It's just being included in a pretty big index. So I wouldn't think it's going to change the trend of this. And the fact that it actually got above this trend leads me to believe that there's probably more near-term downside than anything. What we can do is, I would say you could do bearish positions anywhere above this upward trend line. Just do some like bearish verticals, bear call verticals, bear put verticals, that kind of thing. And I would try to stick at where the current price level is. I would stick it there and above it, because it's still going to get some downward pressure. So even if it doesn't continue on the downward trend of the channel that we have here, you'd at least be up at this area. That way if it just kind of meagers on down into this area where it's above the trend line but it's below its current price, then maybe you still be good, and it gives you a little bit of help just seeing what the stock's going to do. Okay, but I would look for a breaking in the IPO low, and I'm going to set that up for my own watching. But if you want to play it before then, I do think playing it to the downside would be really good. You can do some bearish positions here, and then if it got down to the lower part of the channel, I wouldn't say you look for bullish positions. I would just kind of just be less aggressive on the bearish positions, that kind of thing. So let's look and see. All right, so what we want to do, we got this 14 point level roughly of this IPO low. So I'm going to set an alert there. I'm going to add new alert, and that alert is added at, I think it's 1409. Yeah, it's actually 1409, which is their actual IPO low. So that's just where I'm going to leave that alert for now. And then when CRSR actually gets back to that point in time, the alert will trigger me, and I will come back and check it out. And then I'm going to adjust this alert because I do want, not crossing, I want to know if it's less than. And then I want to see a pop-up. I want it to send me an email just in case I'm not like on the platform. Maybe that day, maybe I'm out doing something else, riding a bike or whatever. I can get an email about it, and that way I can definitely see that, oh yeah, it's moving. Okay, so one thing I did just figure out, I do actually pay for my service to TradingView, but apparently you need a more premium service to have never-ending alerts, or alerts that never end, that kind of thing. I can only go out as far as 2 months, which is, that's fine. You can also set this up in your broker, which most brokers, if they do have alerts, they go on forever, which might not be a bad way to do it. I might set this up in my broker as well. The other thing that you can actually do, and what I was just kind of messing around with, setting this up, and then every couple months, maybe like every month and a half, come back in here and readjust it and send it out another 2 months or as far as you can, that kind of thing. That way you at least come back and check and see what the stock's doing and waiting for it to get to where you want it to go. But the other thing that you want to do when you set up stuff like this and you're not going to play it on the near term is I would highly recommend getting a text box, coming in here saying alert to break IPO low, and then add in alert IPO low. I'm gonna say at 14.09, and then add in alert again for move back above 14.09. Okay, so something like that. That way it kind of gives you an idea of what you were expecting when you come back to this stock in the future. Because when you come back to the stock in the future, you're going to look at it and be like, I don't know what the heck I was thinking. I put an alert on it, I don't know what I was doing. So put in text alerts like this, or put in little text messages on your charting area. That way you can know what you were thinking, what your game plan was. And then you can always readjust that text box and add notes to it and that kind of thing. So just add notes, that way you don't lose track of what you were trying to accomplish. Okay, so we'll go look at some options stuff and figure out how to play this. But this is what I would look for now, is just a break below this 1408 number and then a move back higher. That's just what I'm getting from the stock chart. But I would look for the continued downside until we do that. So let's go look at the options. I want you to leave a stock in the comments below, and I'll come up with a trading plan. So one thing we do notice right away is the options are not the best. They do have monthly options. They do also have leaps out 2 years, right? They do have Jan 23 and Jan 24, which is kind of nice. But they do have monthly options. The bid-ask spreads are okay. They're not the worst. They're not the best. So that's not too bad. So what you can definitely do if you do want to play it before it gets down to that 14-point level, do some bearish verticals so you can sell, these are puts. So you could buy, hold on, since The other thing to note is the strike intervals are every 2.5 points currently at this level. So that is really tough to do. 2.5 points, it's kind of far. So what I would actually do is I wouldn't buy puts. What I would do is, and it's currently at 22.63, so that's not bad. I would actually sell call vertical. I would bring in roughly 88 cents or so of the 250. So you'd be risking about $1.62 or so, $1.60, maybe $1.65, and you maybe get into this one for 85 cents or something like that. So you probably, get into this, be able to sell this vertical for 85 cents, and then you would buy. Then you're risking $1.65. Okay, that's actually not bad. If you did want to do that, I would do that as long as it's up closer to this line, and you're looking for this current setup right on this 250 interval bearish call vertical for 85 cents. So you're looking for it to just in below 2250, which is currently at 2263. So I mean, you got about into March 18th below kind of where it's at now. I don't think that would be really a problem. It gives you kind of plenty of time to watch it and that kind of thing. I don't think this will continue higher. It did just bounce up, get above the 100 moving average, and came right down below it. So I would look for this to kind of continue back down to the downside until it breaks that IPO low. But that's what I would be looking for. But also, just know how you close your trades, risk manage, that kind of thing. So you're risking $1.65 here to make 85 cents. Okay, and this is something that you can do every month going forward. You could do this vertical, selling this bear call vertical every month until it gets down to that IPO low. But I just wouldn't do it if it got below the halfway point of this channel. I wouldn't do it then. Wait for it to come back to the upper boundary of the channel, and then probably I would look to do it again. But if it's down closer to the bottom here, like there's not much downside for it to really go, and you could definitely get the push back to the upper part of the channel, and that's kind of like how it did back over here. It just kind of pushed back up to the upper part of this channel. So I would definitely just be a little bit more cautious about that. I think for right now, you'd be okay doing it. So let's look though at the longer term. So if it does break that IPO low, right? So I'm gonna turn off auto. So if it does break this IPO low and it continues on its current path, it would get down to breaking that IPO low sometime later this year, before 2023, but sometime around potentially August to November, somewhere in that time period, it would get down and break that IPO low. What might actually happen is it breaks that IPO low and bounces, and then comes up and then rolls over and then comes down lower and does something like that. Okay, so something like this where it bounces just below it and then comes up and then rolls over and kind of gets below it a little bit. And then when it does that, I would be looking for the pushback above that previous IPO low. That is some kind of pattern of what I would expect to see. So when you first get this one, I wouldn't worry about that one. I want where it's like hanging out below it for a little while. So if you do get this, watch it for maybe like a day or two. If it bounces back above it, then I would just reset that IPO low alert, and then just wait for it to get below it for an extended period of time. And then once it's below it, then you'd be okay. If it doesn't just get below it and bounce back up, and it just kind of just comes down through it, then okay, then you can set the alert to the upside, and then that would be okay. But when you set the alert to the upside and it gets above it, my game plan would be to go out as far as possible. So I would go to these Jan 24 options, and that was the 14-point price point. So 15 strike, this 15 strike here would be the at the money strike, and I would actually go to the 1750 strike here, and I would buy these for what would that be, about a year out or so, a little bit over a year out. I would actually buy these. So and one of the big reasons why is they would actually be priced around that maybe $5 area. So they're probably somewhere in this area or so. They might be priced maybe even a little bit less, but that's what I would be looking for, where you can get into like a longer term bullish move. Looks like probably pretty cheap, pretty much cheaper. And then as long as it would get back above the 20-point area, you'd be fine. That would be my game plan for this stock. So just a quick recap, okay? So for CRSR, we're gonna look for this downtrend to continue until it breaks its IPO low of about 14.09 points. Then once it breaks below that, it kind of hangs out down there for a little while. We'll have an alert then at the same point to the upside at 14.09 points. And then once it gets above, once it triggers that alert to the upside, that is when you would want to look to maybe get it long for like as far out as you can. So currently we're looking at the Jan 24 options, and I would look at the 1750 strike calls. That's the one I would look for. If it gets into January or 2023, okay, if it gets to January 2023 and then it gets above that 14.09 points, I would definitely go out as far as you can. I wouldn't go to January 24. I would actually go to January 25. Okay, so that's 2025. So I would go out as far as I can. So the January 2025 expiration date would be up, and I would still do the same strike. That's going to be fine. I would just go out as far as I could, and then play it to the upside, play it bullishly. And I think that would be maybe a good way to go. And it might take a while. Like if it gets down here and it takes a year or half a year to get back to that price level, that's fine. I just want to be in it when it's going bullish. And that's what the alert will let you know. Like, hey, it's going bullish. So that's what I would want to know. Okay, that's how I would set up this alert. I think it has made its move on the near term to positive direction, right? It came up into the upper bounds of this trend that's been in for several months. So I would definitely look for on the near term, probably a little bit more selling than not downside. But that would be my game plan for CRSR. And I do appreciate Diet Cola for throwing this out to me, as this is not one I have played before. And so I was definitely interested when he threw this out to me. I was definitely interested in coming up with a game plan on something I've never played before and checking it out. If you want my viewpoints on what I think the market's going to do, click that video in the top left and I'll give you a market update. Alrighty, take care, Alpha Hunters.